So going through what Randall Park was talking about on Barbie's success should mean make more movies by and about women. Um, he has a movie coming out called Shortcomings, and he's now trying to ride that wave, saying his movie's a success. I don't know. I didn't even know about this movie until I heard him talk about Barbie. But to him, it's Barbieheimer Cummings. So, okay. Now, I'm not going through everything he said. I'm going through the main thing he says. He says, I feel like just in general, the industry is taking the wrong lessons. For example, Barbie is this massive blockbuster, and the idea is make more movies about toys, even though nobody has said that. And that's me saying that nobody has said that. He's the first person I've literally heard say that. That's just me. Now I'm back to his quote. No, make more movies by and about women. Park adds, it's Greta Gerwig. Greta Gerwig truly deserves praise as she is the first female director working solo to reach this box office milestone. And he talks about some other stuff. Starts talking about how there's not enough Asian representation. I'm just paraphrasing. And how he can't really say anything because it's the model minority thing, even though that really hasn't been a thing in the last, 30, 40, 50 years. But, I mean, it's still around. Don't get me wrong. But it's gotten less and less and less. By the 90s, 2000s, 2010s and on, the model minority thing is not really a thing like that often anymore. And he also talked about how he's shocked because of the Asian market and how they should be catering to them because they're like the second largest market, which is also not true. It's first off, the market he's talking about was mainly China, where you could get your billion-dollar movies because of China more than any of the other Asian markets. I mean, India is a big one, the UK is a big one, but it was mainly China. Now, that's not a thing anymore, especially since the pandemic. China has cut down tremendously how many movies they let into their country, especially from the Western world of America, specifically from what I remember, because they're trying to push ideologies to make men seem like women and women seem like men and like all of the gender politics stuff. And I think they said it made them like sissies or something like that. You can look it up. Literally, I'm not saying this is literally what China did and why they kind of went that direction. So that market is not really the market like it used to be from even like 3 or 4 years ago. You can clearly see it in some of what's being released. So, now with that coverage being said, here are my thoughts when it goes towards this. So, he's talking about like Asian representation. And then it kind of makes me question because I'm like, we got success of manga definitely taking over Western comic books. You got stuff like Zombieverse, which I haven't gotten a chance to sit down and watch yet, but I've already heard people enjoyed it. Train to Busan, Crash Landing on You, It's Okay to Not Be Okay. I think it's a Korean drama. A friend of mine told me when they were watching it. Squid Game, Sweet Home, Hellbound, Parasite, which is amazing. Wandering Earth, The Mermaid, the Ip Man series, Fearless, House of Flying Daggers, Kung Fu Hustle, Cali Blues, Dr. Ken, and so many other things, all fresh off the boat. So I'm kind of like sitting here, Always Be My Maybe. I'm like, you're sitting there, I find it weird that they're sitting here saying there's no Asian representation. And I just went through Korea, China, and a little bit of Japan. There's Indian things that have come through. You go look at the movie theaters right now, there's movies from India and from Sri Lanka and stuff like that. You got like the Tony Jaa movies, The Protector, things like that. So I don't really follow this narrative that there's no Asian representation or not enough. Could we have more? Sure. But they're talking like there's nothing, and that's something that's getting on my nerves. It's the same thing when people go, There's not enough black cinema. Yet, if you go to any type of streaming service, they have a literal black cinema section with tons and tons of movies and content. So it's like, where are we trying to go here when the evidence says contrary? Like I said, could there be more? Sure. Could there be better content? Maybe. But to sit there and say that doesn't make sense. But it just feels like they're acting like they have no representation. It's like, we need more. And it's like, okay, but what are you looking for? You're talking like there's none. And I just named a bunch off the top of my head. So, just taking this concept and saying the gender or the sex is the reason for the success of this film is ridiculous to me. Also, too, if you're just making movies off of toys, that's not a bad idea, but it's also a bad idea. Like, don't sit there and take the message of going, okay, well, people like, Brave Star, so we're just going to make a Brave Star movie. There's other factors that do come into play. No matter how you feel about Barbie or whatever, a lot of people watched it. Partly because it's Barbie. Just like the Turtles, just like Mario, Sonic, there is a attachment to these franchises. So you already have that factor coming into play, right? Those things are mainly only going to get you in the door. You still need to have the content, and whether I think it's good or bad, or anyone thinks it's good or bad, it has to resonate with the majority of people. That's a talent. That is not your sex or gender. That's your talent that will get people to go. Sorry, I had air conditioner blowing right in the thing, so if you hear the background, that's why. But it's funny because acting like times haven't changed and swearing it's not enough representation. Okay, because he's saying that these should be women produced, women directors or something, and there's just not enough. All right, I'm going to go off the top of my brain right now. Directors: Patty Jenkins, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Catherine Bigelow, Ava DuVernay, of course, because she did A Wrinkle in Time and stuff like that. Patty Jenkins, Greta Gerwig. That's just off the dome. I couldn't name that many female directors 15 years ago. And if I think hard enough, I can think of a few more. With James Cameron's wife that did Hurt Locker. So, staying there stating that there's not enough representation when the person who did Birds of Prey, Asian representation director. The one who did She-Hulk, she was Asian as a showrunner. Who did Eternals? Like, you can't sit here and say there's not enough representation when I'm just randomly naming things where there was a female director or female, producers or things like that. So that's something that's getting on my nerves. You're not a victim all the time, especially when things are progressing. But beyond that, because that just what I just did right there means no representation, of course. Barbie, for example, has a few factors. It different takes on what it is depending on who you talk to. I think it was feminist propaganda. There's other people who think it was just an enjoyable time where it kind of just poked at fun at everybody. I think it was a patriarchy attack. But everyone has their own thing. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Barbie movie, but some of it was funny. But you're going to sit here and try to tell me the Barbenheimer marketing wasn't genius? It was freaking genius. It helped both movies by them not being against each other and inspiring people to watch both. They had fun with it and everything, and it really came out on it on top of everything else. And to me, Randall Park is doing a surface level, woe is me, circa outdated take. That's not the reality of what we deal with now. But, Randall Park is basing on exactly what you wanted, like what he's saying, it should just be this. I mean, Birds of Prey didn't do well. Same kind of stuff he's talking about with the whole, it needs to be genders and stuff like that. Charlie's Angels didn't do well. And their marketing was based solely on female representation. I mean, even Blue Beetle, the director pushing politics, definitely hurt the movie. There's some people that flat out was like, I'm not seeing it now because you had to push a politic, because it went from Batman's a fascist to him starting to say stuff and said something about Bane, and the Bane creator had to be like, no, that's not what it came out of that at all. But he's trying to be hyper political. Then he turned into like, please watch my movie kind of thing, and it's like, y'all need to keep that stuff to yourself. That's not. This is not your platform to do it unless it's something to be that. And Blue Beetle is not a platform to sit there and get hyper political, at least in my personal opinion. And I do think pushing these kind of politics do hurt movies in the long run. Like Little Mermaid, there were like also this whole, if you don't like it, you insert insult of istphobe, incel, basement doll, any of that stuff. You're not helping your cause. Especially because a lot of people aren't liking this because you're not listening to what their problem actually is. And the fact that China even had to come at about the forced diversity, wokeness over the top is insane to me. That China literally was like, you guys are pushing a narrative and it's obvious and lazy. Because it is. Because real work, you would tell us a really good story. But you know, you get movies like Woman King where our slavers are the best thing ever. And you're going to sit here and tell me, awesome, sure. But the big thing is representation can't be your only selling point. Barbie, Black Panther, Captain Marvel are exceptions to the rule, not the rule. Usually identity politics, if you actually go through most of the movies, they actually flop. Now, Captain Marvel was squeezed between two films. They kind of hinted that you needed to watch both in order to get. The thing is, Black Panther, some people say it's not a good movie. My personal opinion, it was actually a very well done movie. I think it's one of the better Marvel films and one of the better films that came out in there, in my personal opinion. I think that when people sit there and say it's an okay movie, I don't agree with that narrative, because I'm like, the cultural idea was cool. The thing between Killmonger and it was a battle of ideologies, and with the African nation, that is a cool story concept. That was a cool story to be told. But that's also off the talents of Ryan Coogler. It's not because Ryan Coogler is black why he was able just to tell that story. It's also because the guy's a talented storyteller. But but according to Randall, he wants you to focus on his skin color, not the fact that that's just one aspect or one avenue of this person, and he really is just a talented guy. But like I said, most of the movies, Barbie, Greta was able, and writers and Margot being the producer, they were able to find something. And it's funny that she said it was $1 billion idea, and it ended up working out for her, which is great. But now she needs to make sure she can continually find that thing that hits people, that pulse, that was able to get people to ignore the fact that it wasn't made for little kids, ignore the fact that there was a lot of messaging in it that was showing stuff, ignoring the fact of a lot of things, and in the end, they're still like, I like this movie, or I wanted to see this movie, or I enjoyed this movie. That is not easy to do, but once you do it, you got to keep that pulse up. So I give them credit for that. But to me, a good idea of what's representation and diversity is Spider-Verse. And you know, because it has great production value, has a fantastic story, which is what you need. The representation is like the whipped cream or the cherry on top. They're not just lecturing to you. It's a part of the film. Even with the stuff that they snuck into the second movie, people ignored it because you could sneak your politics into it. But if you're sitting there lecturing me or focusing the whole time on it, that's what makes it bad. People don't want to be preached to like that. You got to interwove it into the story, or just have it be a part of the character and not be a caricature of that one specific thing. But like I said, Coogler, Greta, that entertainment, the marketing helped too. They're filmmakers with talent. It's not just about it's really honestly not about their gender or their sex, or, you know, whichever one you want to call it, or their skin color, or that one aspect. Oh, it's good because they're black and they're a filmmaker. No, you still have to have talent. I personally did not like Wrinkle in Time. That movie to me was not very good. I think the actors did great, like Storm Reed. I can't remember her name right now. She played Riley Matthews, and her name is escaping me all of a sudden. She was also in Spy Kids. Oh my goodness, her name just escaped me. I have her image in my head, but she played Riley Matthews off of Boy Meets World. I don't know why all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank. I guess because I'm tired. from work. But the movie just itself wasn't good, and it's nothing to do with the fact that she's a black woman or or gender. It just this particular story did not resonate well with a lot of people. But that's not that just is because sometimes it happens. So that's my ideas and stuff for Randall Park. I've rambled on long enough. You tell me what you think. What you think about what he had to say. This is Geek Protagonist. You stay safe, you stay healthy, stay real, and I'll see you.